Hey, so Koala here. So, this is something I don't really do often, which is talk about Honkai Star Rail. So, as you know, I do play all three Heya games. Particularly, I am a Firefly. So, in Honkai Star Rail, I'm a Firefly main. I love Break. Break is by far my favorite. So, as a result, since we know in the following patch, 3.8, I think, 3.8, we will get this new character, Dahlia. Or I would call it Constance. So Constance is a fire in the Heraldry. She'll be a Superbreak support, and then of course she will look like she will support Firefly the most. So for this video, we'll just talk about her and how will she support Firefly, and we'll also talk about her like her. So the Constance, Fire in the Heraldry, she follows the same path as Fugue. So the thing about, if you guys remember, Fugue was released back in patch 2.8. She was like one of the last ones of that patch. Fugue ended up just being a relative, like, she's relatively, like, I would say mediocre for Firefly. She buffed Firefly for sure, especially Firefly E2 because of the weakness, not the weakness, but because of the SO toughness, but the problem for Firefly is that she didn't really give any more bonus. She was obviously better for Boot Hill, was obviously better for Rapper, but she ended up just not being really good for Firefly. So I have high hopes for Constance being like more Firefly focused because Firefly didn't really get much buffs. So what does Constance do? So let's go. I'm gonna go through all of them, and then I will talk about what I think about them. And then I will describe what they mean. So for the basic attack, it's your normal basic attack. She does 100% of her attack to one enemy target, so a single target. Her skill, she will deploy a zone. The zone will decrease at the start of her turn, and then she will deal 5 damage equal to 160% of her own attack to one designated enemy and then any adjacent enemy around them. So it's a burst. While the zone is active, increases all allies' weakness break efficiency by 50% and toughness reduction taken by enemy targets, and not weakness related or now converted to super break damage. Her ultimate inflicts World State to all enemies lasting for 4 turns, then deal 5 damage equal to 300% of her attack, which is then distributed to all enemies. It reduces defense of anyone in the Warp State by 18%, and then applies weakness to all dance partners types to enemy targets. Or basically, the hero is that she will apply the weaknesses of her dance partners to enemy targets, so she implants, pretty much. Talent. Who's afraid of Constance? When entering combat, she will regenerate 35 energy and grants dance partner to this unit and a teammate who triggers combat. If no other dance partner in the field, if there's no other dance partners on the field, she grants dance partners to this unit and then the teammate with the highest break effect. After a dance partner attacks a weakness broken enemy, the toughness reduction attack is converted to 1 instance of super break damage. After an enemy target is attacked by another dance partner, the Dahlia launches another follow-up attack, dealing 5 instances of damage, each dealing 30% of her own attack to one enemy. Each instant of the damage dealt to a weakness broken enemy will deal toughness damage, and then that toughness damage will be converted to equal to super break damage at 200% scaling. The effect can only be triggered once per turn. If the target is defeated before the follow-up attack is used, it will be launched at one random enemy instead. In her technique, after using the technique, she creates a special dimensional field that lasts for 20 seconds. The enemies within this dimension will not actively attack allies. After entering combat with enemies in the special dimension, she will immediately deploy her skill. She convert the combat triggering toughness damage, so she convert the damage that starts off the fight to 1 instance of super break damage at 60% against enemy targets that are weakness broken. Only one dimensional effect by allies can exist at the same time. Bonus ability. Yet another funeral. When entering combat, increases other characters' break effect equal to 24% of Dahlia's break effect plus 50% for 1 turn. This effect triggers again, lasting for 3 turns when Dahlia gets healing or shielding from a teammate. This cannot be triggered repeatedly within a single turn. Number 2, Lament of Lost Soul. Lament Lost Soul. When using talent follow-up attack, recovers 1 skill point. This effect can be triggered once every 2 talent follow-up attacks is used. And then 3, Outgrow the Old. As opposed to new, when an allied target applies weakness to the enemy's target, increases speed by 30% for 2 turns. When the effect is triggered by an allied fire character, also regenerates a set amount of energy equal to 10% of mass energy, capping out a total of 50% mass energy. This can only be triggered once for each character each turn. Stat bonus, break effect 37.3, effect resistance 18%, and HP 10%. Looking at her Eidolons. When a bud readies to bloom, applies talent Superbreak damage multiplier provided to dance partner to all allied characters with dance partner additionally receiving a 40% boost. After dance partner using an attack deals an additional fits amount of toughness reduction, equal to 25% of the enemy's target's max's toughness. The effect can only trigger once per enemy target, and the trigger count for each target resets after the enemy receives a killing blow. And number 2, Fresh and Eternal Beloved. Wilt additionally reduces the all pen red, all type red by 18%, and when an enemy target enters the field, immediately inflicts Wilt State on them, lasting for 3 turns. Number 3 is your normal ultimate and basic attack up. Number 4, increases the instances of damage dealt by talent forward by 5, and every hit increases the target damage taken by 12%, lasting for 2 turns. Number 5, your normal skill and talent up. Number 6, increases the Dahlia's break effect by 150% when using a talent. Follow-up attack advances the next action of all dance partners by 15%. Advanced action and blah blah blah. Okay. So that's the gist of what she does. So we're gonna look at her basic E0 and then what I think about her E1, E2, and then E4. We're not gonna talk about E7. That's way too expensive. But E1 and E2 for sure. Okay, when it comes to her skill, she basically does like a Ruin Mei type deal, but not really Ruin Mei. So this is Ruin Mei's type gimmick here. So she deploys a zone that lasts for 3 turns. Basically what that means is that she starts off the game, she puts a skill, she puts a zone on the field, and then like Ruin Mei, every turn she takes, she reduces that cooldown by 1, which means you need to skill every 3 turns, and she's basically SP positive until she's basically what this means is that she's always SP. She's really SP positive, because as we mentioned, her technique or her talent extra damage also counts. They also give skill points back. So at the beginning, she's probably, let's say if she uses technique at the beginning, right? She's +2 every single 3 turns. She's +2. So on average, she's pretty much plus 0.66 every turn. Like every turn, she's average 0.66 SP. But because of how her team works, she's actually more like plus 0.75 or +1, because she'll gain 2 SP. She gain 1 SP every 2 turns, and she will gain 2 SP, and then she'll have to lose 1 every 3 turns. So she's actually more like +1. So she's a +1 character, which means she's SP positive, which is absolutely insane. So for a Firefly based team, so Firefly at E2 doesn't consume any skill points, but because of how SP positive she is, she actually allows your team with a Fugue, a Lingsha, a Firefly, and a Constance, right? She allows those 3 she allows your Lingsha to keep skilling, which is absolutely insane. So you can always have AoE weakness break efficiency. You can always do AoE fire damage all the time. AoE toughness damage to all fire weak characters. And as you know, Firefly also applies weakness to everybody, and as we can see, Constance also applies weakness to everybody. Fire weak. So as a result, a full fire team will be completely busted, because they can always keep breaking. There's no way to stop them. Okay, when it comes to the ultimate basically applies a wilt, so it's an extra defense shredding, which is kind of interesting. So if you think about how it is right now, like Fugue already kind of shreds like 40%, and then because if you play her on pearls, right, that's 40%. You play her, and then you play Constance, that's another 18%. That's actually pretty good. Because if you ever played back in 1.0, like when the game first came out, defense shredding is really strong. You can, if you're strong, you can keep spamming defenses, or you can get as close to 100% defense shred as possible. Your damage exponentially increases. So the bigger your defense shredding is, the more exponential damage you get, and this applies to everything, including break damage. So as a result, yes, this is really strong because you're getting closer to 100%. I think, if I remember correctly, the first 50% is kind of meh. It's kind of like, who really cares? But then the next 18%, like the next like 50% just scales really fast. That's why in the beginning of the game we had Mono Quantum, because Mono Quantum was so strong because you try to get as close to 100% defense shredding as possible, 100% full pen. It's just absolutely insane. So this is actually a really strong thing. 300% attack is kind of useless. It's like, well, it's just more damage, right? But being break focus, who really cares? Her talent is by far something I did not think actually would happen. She regenerates 35 energy, which basically means she always starts the field basically with like I think half of her energy. I believe her ultimate is 70 energy. Does it say here? No. I think her ultimate is probably 70 to 90 energy. So starting with 35 is really good. That just means that she can always probably like have her ult maybe once at the beginning. She'll probably have it just up. Innately, just always put well. She can probably have a 3-turn rotation. Or like a 3 to 4 turn rotation, so she can always permanently keep world up. So that's pretty strong. She basically had like the Firefly gimmick, where Firefly, if you don't know, Firefly always starts a battle with 50% of her energy. If she had less than 50%, she will regen to 50%. If she has more than 50%, she would just keep whatever she had. Which basically means Firefly always guarantees to get into her buff state at the start. The big thing here that I'm really interested in is that when the she also for the which is crazy compared to Ruin May, she also provides super big damage in addition. So the issue about Ruin May before is that Ruin May didn't really give you like any extra weakness break damage, right? So you only have the 50% weakness break efficiency, right? But the problem is that Ruin May just didn't give you 60%, didn't give you an extra super break scaling, which basically meant your damage kind of suffered a bit because all the thing that mattered was weakness break efficiency. That's all she gave you. So now with Constance on the field, you also get an additional super big multiplier, which is absolutely strong, which is crazy because that basically makes all your characters like in a break team really strong. And that's just because in break is unique compared to all the other setups because break is like how I call it the sum of all parts. So break as a team does damage for everyone. So all four of your teammates do damage compared to like most other teams where maybe one or two characters don't do much damage. Right, they're kind of just the support. In break, everybody does damage because weakness break is just so strong that you can always do damage. Not to mention that another thing that is really big is that he also converts enemies that are not weakness broken will also be converted into super break damage. I need to know how much the scaling is, but I think the scaling is kind of incredible. If it's 1-to-1, this is busted. Like this is on another level of like, well, who cares? I don't really care that you're I don't really care that you're broken, right? I just always do damage. So even if the enemy's toughest lock, you can always just do it. You always just do damage, which is absolutely incredible and probably pretty busted. Even though you don't get this 60% scaling. So they still benefit you to get the broken, right? But they don't screw over break by toughness locking because you don't do any damage until you break. So sure, kind of defeats the purpose of break in my opinion, but so be it, right? And then next up, when the enemy, and this is the part I'm really interested about. Super break damage scaling of 200% seems insane. That's like absolutely bonkers level. Like, right, what do you call it? Like, Fugue had like a 100%, Firefly is 50%, and imagine you know how, imagine like, if you think about it, like, OTB, right? OTB at one person only, it's 120%. 200%, you're basically doubling her own damage. And the problem is that she does it 5 times. So every time she's doing another super very damage for every time she hits. So this is more like a 1000% scaling, which is absolutely insane. It's going to depend on how much toughness damage this thing does. If I were to get, oh, that's 3. Oh, okay. So she does like a total of 15 times 200% toughness damage. That's incredible, which is a lot of damage. It's basically like Firefly at 30, because Firefly has about 30, times 100, which is absolutely insane. That's a lot of damage. So now weak is no longer weak into break is no longer weak into single target because if there's only one person left, Dahlia will just spam these 5 hits into them, right? And after an enemy target is attacked by the other dance partner, the Dahlia falls out, and this can only do it once every time. The problem is that, very funny, this is probably going to be set up to Firefly. And Firefly, in her buff state, usually have about 200 speed. So she's like how Hyacinth is really fast. Imagine Firefly just keeps spamming this every turn because it can only trigger once per turn. Everyone who gets this once per turn means once per Firefly turn. So she's gonna keep spamming it every time you go, which means she's basically a really good sub breaker, which is interesting. Her technique, after using, and her technique is something that I also think is a little bit interesting. She converts when she, oh actually no, I think this is probably what it is. So she converts at 60%. That's actually still pretty good. So 60% is like not as like efficient as 100%, so they still incentivize you, but 60% is still 60%. Instead of doing 2,000 when you don't break somebody, you still probably do like maybe 120,000, right? That's incredible. Because let's say my 5 just about like 200,000, right? 120,000. That's still 120,000 damage for not having to go through the weakness break. It's pretty strong. That's a lot of power. Oh, and she cannot crit, blah blah blah. Yeah, okay, we know. Okay, for the bonus abilities, this is the thing I think is really powerful. So, Dahlia gains 24. She gives 24% plus 50% base for one turn, and this always repeats every time she heals or shields every turn for 3 turns. So, what this basically means, this is 100% uptime, because but basically this is Hoyo telling us the players they do not like sustainless teams. They do not want Dahlia to play in a sustainless team. So as a result, if you play her with like a Linkcha, which is basically you're required to now, or you play like a Gallagher, right? uh, you always gain this bonus here. And given the fact that Dahlia is kind of like a sub DPS, the build you're going to be playing with her is probably going to be uh, the Cavalry of the Scourge. So it's Iron Cavalry of the Scourge, which is the one that gives bonuses damage up to from 200% and 360% break effect. What that means is that if you get her to like say 300, 360%, you're going to give your team maybe like 100, like almost 100%, 100% break effect just for free. This is insane. Like if you remember, like how you remember how many trailblazers and how many trailblazers are like 200, 300 weakness break efficiency um, gave the whole team about 100% break effect. This is basically that bonus trick. That's it. That's literally why. So this is 100% extra break effect for your already juiced up break effect Firefly, which is incredible. And this is what I'm talking about. The next number 2 is also what I'm talking about for the talent. She recovers another skill point for every 2 turns, which means that in a 3-turn cycle, she is +1, which is basically another way of saying she always will recover 1 skill point for every turn you run, or about 1 skill point per turn she has. What that means is that you for every 1 turn you have, you don't have to spend. You can spend time by spending -1 on Lingsha. And congratulations, you always have Lingsha buddy just running down the A bar, the action bar, which is crazy. So now Lingsha no longer has SP problems. Because in the current team, right, Lingsha can kind of get away with not having SP problems because you play like Ruin May, which is plus 0.67, and then Fugue, which is plus 0.67. Now, but plus 0.67 plus 0.77 kind of made a little bit of issues with Firefly, because Firefly also needed to like skill 2 times at the end of her rotation. So they kind of led to a little bit of skill point issues, but not much, right? Constance by far just completely ignores that. She basically makes it so Linkshot always has SP, which is so strong. You always heal every turn. You cleanse, you heal, and you always have your bunny just spamming up the heal bar. So you always do AoE damage, which is incredibly strong. And then next up, outgrow. Okay, I'm not gonna pronounce this. When ally applies weakness break, increases speed by 30%. Wait, when ally target applies weakness to an enemy target. Oh, this is okay. This is very specific. Okay, when the target by fire ally also generates a set amount of energy equal to 10%. Energy capped at 50%. This is very specific. This is a Firefly only buff. Because the first thing is that they must apply weakness. There's only 2 characters in the game that applies weakness, right? That's Firefly and that's Boot Hill. Rapper doesn't do that. So Rapper doesn't apply weakness. And then when this effect is triggered by an ally character, oh, there's only one. There's only one fire break character. That's Firefly. And she regenerates 10% of that energy, which is also a Firefly specific buff, which is pretty funny because Firefly is the only character in the game where getting flat energy is really bad, but getting max energy is really strong. So what this means is that as long as Firefly skills 4 times in her enhanced state, which is really easy if you have a 150 sets to 200 160. If you have it at 150 speed or 210 speed in enhanced, you can easily get 5, right? Which basically means like Noose, I mean obvious, right? Captain Obvious here. Firefly have 0 downtime. As long as she has actually like more like 1 turn of downtime. So when she gets out of the state, she skills one more time. She skill, and then she immediately comes back into the phase. So she basically has 0 downtime now, which is incredible because she has Firefly gives herself 60% mass energy, and then Constance here gives her an additional 50% mass energy or 110 energy, and she would go back into the phase and she would do the whole thing again. So for all our Firefly lovers here, instead of having to wait 2 turns to get Firefly back up, you wait 1 turn. And you don't have to wait the whole cycle because Firefly is already super fast and she only loses the speed when she gets out of the break phase. That's ridiculously good for her. That mean you don't have to wait to get her back up. Okay, when it comes to Eidolons, right? Let's show that the important Eidolon I think by 4 is 1 and 2. Obviously, I think 1 by 4 is the most important. It's really overpowered because it reduces the toughness reduction of the first hit by 25%. She just immediately just dumps 1/4 of the enemy's toughness bar. Just like that, just instantly press it. And the thing about it too is that I'm not sure how this works, but if I were to guess, if there's certain bosses in this game that has toughness bars, right? That have like 5x toughness bars. I think what that means is that since they have 5x toughness bar, they lose 25%. So the first thing she does, well, the first time that, like say, the dance mode, the Firefly hits him, that's 2 balls of damage. Pretty much 2 balls of damage just instantly gone. That's absolutely stupid. That's such a stupid amount of damage. Like that's such a stupid amount of toughness damage. And the thing about it is that if you don't know, the amount of toughness damage you do scales into your super break damage. And as we saw up here, Firefly, she immediately converts 60% of her damage of the toughness damage to super break damage, even if they're not weakness broken, right? Right. So what does that mean? What that means is that you have 25% max toughness damage, and then Firefly's own toughness damage. You add them all up, and you do 60% of that super break damage to the enemy. That sounds pretty busted, doesn't it? That's a lot of power. That sounds ridiculously stupid because it's up to 300 points, but 300 points would basically mean that enemy toughness one needs to be like 1200, which is absolutely insane to think about. Mind-boggling 1200 points of super big damage, but still. If you could get 300 points of super big damage and Firefly does like 50 because of all the weakness break efficiency, that's probably like 400 points worth of damage in super big, and it cuts down to 60%. That's absolutely insane. That's a lot of damage. So. Number 2, diffuse all reds by 18%, and then when enemy is in the field, immediately put the wilt state, which is basically that state where they lose 18% of their defense, and they immediately apply the fire break in this case, so fire weakness. This is okay. I think this is pretty good, but this is not like mandatory. I believe it's E1's mandatory. This is by 4. This changes the entire kit. It basically makes bosses a joke because a lot of bosses maybe these new bosses are like 500 toughness bar. You can just delete 25% of that. You're like, okay, I don't want to deal with. I only want to hit 75%. Cool, that's really OP. And then if they, and this happens for every time the target receives a killing blow, which basically means like if you knock them out of phase, right? That's a killing blow. So they go back into phase, another 25% gets slapped into their face. So all enemies in the field only have 75% max toughness damage, which is absolutely insane. And then they take the weakness break damage from that 25%. So that's absolutely insane. The all-type pen reds is basically just kind of like an alternative to Ruin Mei. So as a result of having Constance and not having Ruin Mei, you lose 10% reds and you lose 10% speed. That's the only thing that just changes. So this is just kind of their way to say, like, if you buy her E2, you can get the Ruin Mei, like the half Ruin Mei passive. You get 18% pen res and all type res instead of 10%. That's pretty cool. And then of course the last one I won't talk about her C sets, but her E4, her increases the follow up by 5, which basically just means instead of doing 5 hits, it does 10 hits. and then every time it hits, it increases the enemy's damage taken by 12%, lasting by 2 turns. What I don't really understand, don't know that if I need the answer is that does this stack? So if I hit the same guy, same boss 10 times, right? Does that mean they take 120% extra damage? If that's true, that means this is a boss killer. If it's like only 12%, right? Like only just 12% flat. Like if they hit multiple times, only just 12%. This is pretty garbage. So like I mean, five. Don't get me wrong. Five extra follow tap is great. So that's just like 10. That just doubles her damage on her 200% 200% super bait scaling. But it just if you can get 120%, you basically just double this weakness base scaling to 440, which is 448. So 448% scaling. It sounds pretty busted. So this is a pretty good E4. I'm just going to depend if this can stack. If this can stack and each count individual debuffs, you're golden. This is a really good E4 to grab. And yet Death is always beautiful. Increases her break effect by 150%. This is not really good. This is basically just a so instead of having Death dance, this is just basically dance, right? That's pretty much just it. That's cool. She just gives you dance. But dance while having to spam more. So, for her, how are we gonna build her? Obviously, we build her as we know Ivan Calvary the Scourge is by far her best slot. If they don't make a new set, Ivan Calvary the Scourge is really by far her best thing. You want to focus on probably want to go of course the first two are a lot. Her chest piece, you probably want to go attack percent with speed and break. You don't even need speed on it. You just need break. Like break effect. Her boots probably speed with break effect and attack percent. Some speed is good on her because you kind of want her to take turns. Because you kind of want her to be able to keep regenerating energy and keep like going around. You don't want her like omega slow, but you don't want her omega fast. So because omega fast means she's kind of wasting this time. Of course it's like you want her a little bit fast because maybe if what this talent means like you only have it once per turn, means you only have it once per her turn. You probably want her like 140, 150 speed. So I think her base stats or she has 96 speed, so she's just as slow as Lincha. So that's kind of like a bummer. But if you can have a like 134 speed, like a Fugue, then you're pretty good. You're pretty happy. In terms of her planar, by far her best planar, unless they make a new one, is Calliope Lantern. So the Lantern one, which is Firefly Zone one, that one's by far the best one because she's a fire character. So she's a fire and she does happen to do toughness damage. So that's really good for her. Last but not least, her light cone. Her light cone increases break effect by 60%. When entering combat, increases break damage by the wearer and another teammate who triggered combat by 30%. It does no trigger. There's no teammate who did it. Applies to the wearer and the toughness and the character with the highest break effect, which is basically Firefly. And the effect at the same time cannot be stacked. When the wearer applies weakness to an enemy target, recovers 1 skill point. This effect can only trigger once, and this count resets when using ultimate. So basically, this just means that she becomes 1.33 SP positive. instead of being +1, she's plus 1.33. That actually sounds really stupid. So she's ridiculously and more SP positive than this. So what do I think about this? This is kind of generic. 60% breaking effect is kind of average. That's I believe Firefly is higher than this. It's like 80% or something like that. But it's pretty average. So this is just normal. And the increases break damage is kind of saturated. So Firefly kind of already has this. Few kind of already has it. So like 33% extra damage, extra break damage is kind of cool. So that's just good. That's just naturally like it's okay. It's kind of saturated, oversaturated because characters already kind of have it, and then of course the base stats who really cares. Like the base stats don't really matter as much. It's not like a character like Firefly who wants higher attack and lower base HP and stuff like that. So when it comes to team comps, okay, the obvious team comp: Firefly, Constance, Fugue, Lincha by far. Or but if you're playing Dahlia, by far you need Lincha. Lincha is by far one of the most synergistic part of the kit because of this this E1 is this bonus ability trace 1 is really important. Just having break effect each of 24% and then Dahlia's break effect for 50% is just that big of a deal. Just having it up 100% of the time by having sustain is just that powerful. is you don't want to ever lose this talent because you didn't bring healing, right? Since as a result of that, Link Shot or any sustainer like Gallagher is required. You need it. And then of course this one only applies to Firefly, right? Because Firefly is the only character who can apply weakness to an enemy target and happens to also be fire. So by for sure Firefly is the only character you can play her with for this. Unless they make a fire weakness break character, Firefly is the only character in the game right now that can do this. And then of course the last one, last but not least, will be Fugue. That is really really good. So it's basically it's a pretty premium team. Of course, if you have in terms of priority, I think getting this is pretty important, and then getting who E1 of course getting Constance is important, obviously, and then getting who E1 and then S1. Who E1 is by far the most overpowered thing I've ever seen because it does mass toughness damage, which basically negates any amount of toughness increase that they ever choose to do. And it also gives them an additional 40% boost to the super big multiplier, which basically changes this from 60% to 100%. So that basically means who if you give this one to Firefly, who usually should be on, Firefly will always do her amount of toughness damage. Doesn't matter if she breaks or not. Doesn't matter the enemy the enemy cannot be weakness broken. It doesn't matter if the enemy just straight up don't care. The enemy will just always take 100% weakness break damage, which is usually the same thing as saying Firefly always hit them. So that seems pretty powerful. That just seems really overpowered, and that's why the E1 I think is by far more important. And then her S1, her S1's her light cone is pretty good, but it's a lot of this is kind of oversaturated, and a lot of it is just nice to have. However, the E1 is just that much bigger of a difference that I believe E1 would be much better than her S1. Okay, the last and not least, the last section of this game or of this thing. Obviously, Constance versus Ruin May. What's the difference between these two? So, Ruin May, the pros and cons, I would say. The pros of Dahlia compared to Ruin May. Dahlia is actually the pro is that she has pretty much everything you want out of a support that gives weakness break efficiency, and then also provides super break damage. So she is a Ruin May that's specifically made for super break damage instead of break damage. This basically means that she has a lot more stats that gives her everything she wants. She has weakness break efficiency. She converts super break damage, right? She has follow-up attack to do more toughness damage. She's not as useless as Ruin May. So all Ruin May really does, she skills and she sits there for 3 turns and she heals again. That's all Ruin May does. Constance instead skills, then she follow up attack, and then she just takes a turn, follow up attack, takes a turn, follow up attack, skills, and do it all over again. That's incredibly strong. So that's a lot of power. On top of that, not Ruin May, Constance also gives an additional 18% defense shred, and defense shred stacking in this game is really powerful, because as you reach some things like 100% weakness break, 100% defense shredding, you can kind of explode a lot of enemies, because as if they don't have any defense, which is what can negate a lot of the damage. So just having the difference between like 80% 80% defense, being 80% defense shredding to 100% defense shredding is massive. So just getting closer to 100% is that big. It's a lot of strength. And then an additional bonus that she also has is that for Firefly specifically, right? She grants more energy, guaranteeing that Firefly will only have about 1 turn of downtime, or she will have basically 0 turns of downtime because Firefly will be able to skill on her turn and then immediately ult again. So it's as if she had basically 0 turns of downtime because she would take a turn, skill, be at 110% max energy, ult back up into the system, ult, and then do auto wipe again, and do it all over again. So this Firefly basically has no downtime anymore. So that fits as Firefly's downtime weakness. And then this is basically this is a combination of Ruin May and then this is Harmony Trailblazers bonus, which basically means whenever she enters combat, she increases her own breakness. Increases everybody else's break effect equal to part of her break effect, and then plus 50%, which is basically the same as HTB whenever HTB ults. So whenever HTB ults, she provides a break effect equal to 24%, and then of course she provides more break effect. So she can easily probably give 100% break effect to everyone on the team. except for herself, which basically means that she's kind of like this combination of Ruin Mei and Homely Trailblazer without the dance chain. In addition, compared to Ruin Mei, Dahlia is more SP positive because her talent gives her 1 SP for every 2 follow-up attacks. She only needs to scale once every 3 turns, and then she needs to and this only gives -1, and she gains +1 for the other 2 turns. So she's basically +1 or +1.23 depending if you have a Sig cone and stuff like that. And then in terms of that, and in addition, her E1 is incredibly powerful, way more powerful than Ruin Mei's E1 because it deals maximum toughness damage, which then get converted into just triggering toughness reduction, even against enemies that are not weakness broken. I believe this means like against enemy targets that are not weakness broken. So if she can it will always deal actually right here, it says right here. Toughness reduction take my enemies while not weakness can be converted to super damage. It basically means like even if you don't take damage or you don't even if you don't break initially, you can always do weakness break damage, which is such a powerful ability because this technique, right, allows you for the first character who starts the battle to use an attack, they get to deal an additional fixed amount of toughness damage equal to 25% of the target's max damage, which then gets converted to super rate damage at probably I think 60% scaling. And then if you have an E2 that converts up to no, you have an E1 that goes up by additional 40%. No, is it E1? Which one? Where did they go up by additional 40%? I just talked about it. Oh yeah, right here. So yeah, it goes up by additional 40%. So it scales up to probably 100%. So basically, it means that at the start of battle, you do 25% max toughness damage plus whatever toughness damage you're gonna do, plus implanting all fire weakness all at once for a character that is incredible. So that's a lot of power. Okay, then what's the downside compared to Ruin Mei? The only downside I can think of is one, she does not provide the all-type rest without Eidolons. So 10% all-type rest, you can kind of feel the damage. It's just more damage, even though it's kind of a little bit more useless compared to things. So this is kind of like a minor downside. And of course, the biggest one for sure is that she doesn't provide a 10% speed bonus like Ruin Mei. Since she doesn't provide a 10% speed bonus like Ruin Mei, you're gonna have to probably kind of re-gear your Firefly. So a lot of the times, a lot of people's Firefly they gear it for 140 speed. So when you ult with Firefly who gains 10 speed because of Ruin Mei, you set up for 140 plus 40, so 150 plus 60 because Firefly's bonus trace, which makes it 210, which is the breakpoint. So as a result, not given the 10% speed bonus, a lot of people are going to have to re-gear the Firefly to hit that 210 breakpoint now, without needing the Ruin Mei thing. That may or may not be an issue depending on how you build. For me personally, I have a 150 set speed Firefly initially, so I'm fine. But I know for a lot of people, it's going to kind of screw up your build a little bit because you don't have access. And on top of that, you can't. On top of that, for Dahlia, you can't really play her sustainless because this technique here is required for you to play sustain. So they kind of just don't want to get rid of Lingsha pretty much, and they want to make sure that you always play Lingsha with her, and you don't kind of play this degenerate style. You play Few, Firefly, Ruin Mei, and Dahlia, and you kind of play this like 400% like weakness break efficiency, like gimmick, you just explode everybody. So they want you to play like that. They want you to play some form of sustain just so it kind of like doesn't make it so sustainless kind of goes wild. Like even you do gain this for 1 turn, but in most of sustainless fights you don't finish in 1 turn. You finish in like 1 or 2, and that's you 0 cycle. But even then for 1 turn basically just means for the first action of that character only, which is a problem. As a result, you rather have Dahlia, you rather have a sustain, so you can refresh this turn from 1 to 3 turns and continuously get it every 3 turns. Because if you have a Lingsha, since Lingsha can scale every turn because of Dahlia, this thing would be 100% uptime. So that's a lot of power, and that's in my opinion a pretty big distinction and a really big issue for her. In terms of her stat bonuses, break effect and effect resistance are pretty average, and HP is just average. So you can tell that she doesn't really have a lot of. Her talents are kind of weird. She for some reason doesn't have attack percent. She instead have HP percent and effect resistance. I wish they give her the effect resistance here and give her attack percent, and then give break effect and HP and attack percent. That's good. Effect resistance is kind of sus. It's like, why does she need it? Why does she need 18% effect resistance? It's kind of a jump stat. So, like, overall, those are my thoughts about her. I hope everyone had like, you know, I hope if you love Firefly as much as I do. Oh, I no, her math engine is 130. Okay, if you love Firefly as much as I do, she's a must pull. She by far is perfectly synergistic with Firefly, especially with this talent. And then she's synergistic with Leisha because of this talent. Like, I think if you ever get her, you get I think she's by far required. Not really required. You can get Firefly E2 and get away with it, but I think she's really good. She's the answer that Firefly is really wishing for. She's like the thing that I really wanted out of a character. I really wanted a character that really buffed Firefly, really made Firefly like the star of the show. So, and then she does this. She makes Firefly the star of the show because she picks one character who happens to have the most, who happens to be the one who either starts the battle, which is always Firefly, or happens to be the one with the highest break effect, which also happens to be Firefly. So, with all this gimmick, she basically is a Firefly support. She's 100% a Firefly support. She basically is the thing that we Firefly players kind of wish we had with Fugue. Like when Fugue came out, we really wish Fugue did more to help Firefly, and this is the answer. So I wish everyone the best of luck. If you want any help or you want like any my thoughts with like Firefly teams, you really want to know like how to kind of not really how to build it, but you really want to know like Firefly teams. You want to know like how to kind of play around with her, like any more like questions regarding like what do you think she does, or how do I min max or stuff like that. Like please ask me. I'll be like watching her closely throughout the beta because the beta just came out, so I'll watch her really closely, and I'll pay attention, and I would like make more updates if you guys request it. I'll also make updates when we get closer to the beta, and it'll also be whenever she pulls in like 6 weeks. So once she comes out in 6 weeks, I will pull her, I will play her, and I will kind of show you kind of like how to play around it. Anyways, like I said, I wish everyone the best of luck. I hope you stay excited, and of course, stay fiery. I would say, I don't know, fireful fly shine. stay shiny. Or stay full shine. I'll see you guys later, and I hope everyone best of luck when you pull her. Thank you, and good rest of your day. Bye bye. Hello everyone, it's Koala here. I didn't mention with the Dahlia showcase. I just want to talk about my Firefly comp, so we kind of have like an understanding of like where I'm coming from. So this is my E2 Firefly. So this is my UID. If you want anyone actually cared. So this is my UID. This is my Firefly. She's E2 S1. You can see I have a 156 speed. The breakpoint for her I think is 210. So I kind of like already bypassed the amount anyways. Like I kind of blew through the pass because most people are like, well you should have like 140 speed, 150% in battle, 210 breakpoint. I kind of blew this out of the water, so I don't really care. But but stuff like this is incredibly powerful. Very cool. So as you see where I'm coming from, Firefly for sure has the highest break effect in the team because she will have 217 base at the start, and of course, since she's usually the one who starts the battle because she slams down, she will be the target of that dance partner. As a result, she will be the one who does the most damage, and of course, Firefly gets all the bonuses for having to be the DPS. When we look at Fugue, right? Fugue is just cool. Like her damage is pretty okay. Her witness rate efficiency is not really that great, but she, of course, like I said, she has pearls. So pearls is this artifact that gives defense shredding. That's pretty good. I think it's pretty good overall, right? And of course we have Link Shot. So Link Shot is the sustain you really want with Dahlia. The reason why you want her with Dahlia is because Dahlia gains benefit from the healing, and Linsha always heal every time she skill and every time her bunny acts. So as a result of that, you can always make sure that your Constance always have 100% 100% uptime, which basically means that she is ridiculously good at just making sure that Dahlia never loses her buffs. So in my opinion, you should always play Lincha, and you probably should play her at like 155 to 156 speed, right? So you see my Firefly a little bit faster. That's okay. Like I like to play my Firefly faster, but stuff like this is a pretty important too. And then as I mentioned before, pretty funny, but all three characters in the team are gonna always want this one: Iron Calvary the Scourge, and then Calipia Forge of the Calpagni's Lantern. So Lantern and Iron Calvary against the Scourge. So pretty funny. The entire team is gonna be dressed up as Firefly, so it's gonna be a full Firefly cosplay team, which is actually hilarious. So I just want to put this in as an insert, just in case the people ask like, hey, what's your Firefly at, or like what are you looking at as a thing? I think Firefly E2 is just that important, and Firefly E2 will shine even bigger, even better with the Dahlia, because now since I get an extra turn, I can basically always have I can guarantee the 50% energy regen. And then and then if you ever wanted to, and if I ever wanted to invest more, I think I'm also considering to get Dahlia to be E1 and then get Fugue E1. So basically I can give a Firefly who already has basically 150% base weakness base efficiency, I can give a 100 and then 100 250. So as a result, because of how Constance applies weakness of the person in front to everybody, Fugue no longer needs to hit the link shot. The reason why you need to hit the link shot is because Dahlia always puts fire weakness on everyone. So link shot's no longer screwed over by having people who Firefly didn't really target. Everybody will have fire weakness now, which basically means that Few can now put it into Firefly, give her more weakness break, give her more break effect, and then Dahlia will also give her another 100% break effect. So you can start seeing my break effect to reach probably like 600%, which is absolutely insane. At 600%, I can absolutely cook everybody if I really wanted to. So, anyways, yeah, I just want to talk about like what am I looking at for a Firefly comp, and then I hope if you have Firefly, you love Firefly, I hope you consider her. She seems pretty fun, but of course, like always, pull for who you like. Don't listen to my rambling. If you really like Constance, pull for Constance. If you don't like Constance, don't pull for Constance. Like, just do what you like. This is a game, and your enjoyment is all that matters. Anyways, I wish everyone the best of luck and good luck, and I will see you guys in 6 weeks or later. Oh, actually, I'll probably see you guys closer to the end of beta as we finish up this patch and I get ready for Constance. I hope everyone the best of luck, and I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.